Welcome back. It is Valentine's Day 2022. And yes, I am alive with COVID. And I'm doing this broadcast with my good associate in crime, Chris Aceto. And Chris, despite the fact that I do have COVID, and the last couple of days were very miserable for me, I know that people expect Heavy Muscle Radio every week, so we're going to do it here.
Well, the show's going to tank without Lee Priest and Romano. What are they going to do for their highlight of the week?
Well, yeah, exactly. Now, Lee Priest will be on Iron Rage, and John Romano will be on After Hours, assuming that I have the energy to do it. But today was actually the first day I kind of turned the corner, like, you know, where I actually woke up and I didn't have to. I was living on Tylenol for like the last 7 days, like round the clock. Like that's how bad. And even with the Tylenol, I still had a fever. Now, I don't know if I've licked it yet. I haven't taken any Tylenol yet today because I probably have a low-grade fever, but that's the most uncomfortable thing. A lot of people ask me, you know, if you haven't had COVID, you know what I'm talking about. It's like this, it's like a very low-grade form of the flu, but the flu goes away after a couple of days. This just lingers and lingers. And
it's like using a little bit of DNP permanently.
Right. You can't relax. You can't. You figure, all right, I'm isolated. I'll watch some TV. It's like everything was annoying the crap out of me that I was watching. Like, and I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't feel like working. You know, I just felt like, please go away. And so the first half I slept a lot, and then all of a sudden I like after I slept for like 2 days, I didn't want to sleep anymore. It's like I almost can't even fall asleep sometimes. And
how did it permeate the Palumbo household? How did it get in there?
At first I thought it was Mr. G because I violated one of my rules and I let him come into the studio live for an after-hour show. So, but I can't even blame him because he tested negative. So it wasn't him. I don't know if it was someone who came and delivered something or, I don't know. All I know is that Tyler got it too. He had no symptoms, but he's young. So he didn't even know. He tested on last Friday, and he said he was negative because he had a little bit of a cough. I don't think he gave it to me. I think I gave it to him. And then we worked all together.
And you have no comorbidity issues, right?
Meaning what?
I don't know. What's morbidity
like
mean?
Like heart problems, like that would exacerbate.
Yeah,
of course I do.
It's a rhetorical question because everyone has them after 45. I mean, you got blood pressure a little bit high.
I got a million things going on. Little things, like my father, annoying things.
No, it's death by a million cuts.
The thing that I've noticed is my oxygen levels are a little low when I do the oxygen stat. You stick your finger in that thing, it tells you O2. So they're like anywhere from 93 to 96, which is low. Should be 98, around there. So, and I'm getting out of breath a little bit if I'm doing anything, exertional. So, and I have this like wicked cough sometimes, but right now, like if I'm relaxed and I'm not really doing much, I might get a little out of breath, but I don't have to do the cough. So people have asked me, what have I been doing? So this is my ultimate cocktail. You want to know my morning ritual?
Yeah, let me write it down.
I take my hydroxychloroquine, which I had gotten from my good friends at Predator Nutrition about 2 years ago. They had sent me some just in case.
I got mine from Trump, but go ahead.
I take 500 milligrams twice a day of that, and then my doctor friend who's a cardiologist put me on a Z-Pack. But like rather than do one Z-Pack, he's got me doing like two of them, like 500 milligrams a day for 7 days.
And what's a Z-Pack?
A Z-Pack is an antibiotic, but it also has it shows some activity at inhibiting COVID. And he wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get like a secondary pneumonia type of thing because I had a really annoying cough like for a while. So he put me on that, and then I'm taking zinc, obviously extra zinc with the hydroxychloroquine, which kind of drives it in, and the zinc inhibits the virus from replicating supposedly. And I'm doing all my nutritional supplements. I'm taking my Omega-Lyze formula so I don't throw any clots. I'm taking all my multivitamins. I'm taking extra vitamin C, extra 10,000 units of vitamin D3, which we know is good because COVID depletes that. And I've been, all you can do, it's like bodybuilding. You can apply it every day, but it doesn't necessarily, you don't see results immediately. The problem people make is they give up after a day or so, just like with bodybuilding. They give up after 3 months, and they just right before they're about to make their greatest gains. So I had to be patient. That's all. It was not fun. I wake up in the middle of the night sweating, then I'm freezing, and so.
So are you sleeping out with the snakes? Where are you?
So I've been playing Russian roulette. No, I've been going back and forth. So I'm like during the day on the weekend here, I'm at the office. I hang out all day. Until my kids usually the kids have been playing outside, so I've been outside just talking to them from a distance. And then when they go upstairs at night or up for a nap, I'll go back to the house and do whatever I got to do over there, and then I'll come back here until they go to sleep at night, and then I go back to the house and So I have all my food over here. Luckily,
same thing you were doing even before COVID.
Right. Luckily, I have 2 buildings on my property, so that made it a little easier. But of course, my wife Amanda she's been picking up the slack, and so she's been doing everything pretty much for the kids. And my little one tested positive, but she has no symptoms whatsoever. So I don't know where she got it or whatever. Everyone else doesn't have it, so it's a very weird dynamic. It's a very it's not something that I would ever want to have again. That's for sure. It's a nasty illness, and you know what? This new Omicron variety is very contagious. I personally think I got the Delta variant because Omicron is supposed to be 3 days and it's done. I'm going on 2 weeks now where I feel terrible. So,
I know people who've got it and they're way overweight and they're totally fine in 3 days, and people who are like super healthy get it and it takes them 3 weeks to kick it.
Yeah, it's the viral load supposedly that you're exposed to. Like if you have a high viral load, you probably have a worse case of it. Whereas if you get a low, like maybe a very brief exposure, your body might have an easier chance to break it up. Now, I don't know where I got. I have a feeling that when I take my son to MMA, all these parents sit around and watch the kids fight, and they're on bleachers right next to each other. And I'm trying to stay away from people, but it's impossible. And everyone wants to talk to me and ask me questions. And I'm wondering if that's where I got it, probably. I have a feeling. But having said that, we have the Arnold Classic coming up in a couple weeks, and you'll be out there covering it with John Hansen for us. So that's exciting. Are you looking forward to the Arnold this year?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I like it this time of year as opposed to where they had it just recently, right? They just had it a few months ago.
Right, in September.
Isn't it strange?
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it because it's a great lineup, and I'm looking forward to seeing an audience there, because the last two, I mean, last year's was 2 years ago was an asterisk. There was no one in terms of excitement, pre-judging, there was no one there, maybe 10 people.
Right.
And then this most recent Arnold that they had in the summer, I guess it was the summer, fall.
Yeah. And that was probably the most.
It was quiet, you know what I mean? Yeah, but it was quiet. There was no trade, there was no excitement. Like me and Sid did the preview show, and there was like 2 people, walking around Columbus.
Right.
Whereas, hopefully this time they'll get, be back full force.
Yeah, the expo is where everyone goes to because people.
I wonder if Aaron would have sponsored this expo.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Arnold will ever take his money again. So, but I guess Arnold got the last laugh in that matter. So the expo is going to take place now. I'm sure you'll probably never even go to the expo if I know you.
I hardly ever go.
No,
ever.
But
it's too crowded.
You have to be very careful there, I would imagine. I mean, you know how the Arnold normally is. If it's going to have as many people as it always does, it's wall to wall people to the point where you're literally body to body trying to get through the expo hall. I can't imagine whether you're wearing a mask or not. It's going to make a big difference. Whenever I would come back from the Arnold every year, back in the, when I was going religiously, like the late 90s, early 2000s, I always got sick when I got back. Everyone did. We all got like some kind of low-grade virus or flu or something because we were all on top of each other, sweating, taking pictures, and it's impossible not to. So, there's going to be people walking around there with COVID. It's just inevitable. They may not even know
it. That's just the way it is.
So you got to, guys, if you're going to go, you got to be very careful. That's all I'm saying, because this is not something that you want to get, believe me. Luckily I wasn't in the hospital or I had to be, or anything like that, where like some of these, we heard about Bill Phillips and all that stuff, but I wouldn't even want the version I had again. Okay, so that's something you want to really take into account. Now, I wanted to also talk about, Chris, the past Arnold Classic champions, because I think people forget, in bodybuilding today, it's like they don't even know what happened 6 months ago anymore. No one has a memory. It seems like there's always new people coming into the sport, and no one has any historical awareness of what's happened in the past and who came before. So I wanted to kind of look back at some of the Arnold Classic champions. Obviously, the first champion being Rich Gaspari. And there was a great, I remember when I was a kid, I wasn't such a kid. I was probably in college, and I was watching, I think was it the Johnny Carson show? I don't even know if Johnny Carson or it was Leno. And Arnold was on there promoting the first Arnold Classic. And he had Rich Gaspari, I think, there, and I forget who else. Mike Christian, Gaspari, and someone else, and they were posing actually on stage. Can you imagine the Tonight Show nowadays?
Well, they could go on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah,
right?
I wonder why Arnold wouldn't use that because if he said, "Hey, I'm bringing the bodybuilders onto the stage," they
William Bonac, huh? It's maybe he doesn't need to anymore.
He would have to bring Cedric, of course, because Cedric.
Oh, he'd definitely bring Cedric, and he'd bring
Curry,
back.
He'd
bring back people who have won the show. He'd bring back people who have won the show in the past who are doing it this year, which is what.
And maybe like a Nick Walker or something like that. Oh no, Nick Walker's not even doing it. So who would he bring? I guess he'd have to bring back
Arnold, Curry, and Bonac.
He'd bring Kuclo. He'd probably bring Kuclo, right? Kuclo. I would pick Kuclo, Cedric, and Curry. That would be my pick. Because Cedric, just because he's funny as shit, and he'd be cracking. He'd be doing he'd want to come out first and do how the comedians come out and they do it.
He could do it 2 minutes to warm up the crowd.
Yeah, the crowd.
He could definitely do. Cedric could do a 2 or 3 minute warm up. Arnold could say, "Go out there and just warm up the Jimmy Kimmel crowd," and he could. He'd say, "No, I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to say." And he'd start talking about Kardashians or Kanye West or There's Dave's cough.
Yeah, there's my cough. It's when I laugh or when I overexert. I have my cough.
Gaspari won what? 89.
What? Yeah, Gaspari won. He won in 89. And then there was Then there was the drug testing year, if you remember, 1990.
Yeah,
and
that was.
Sean
I think
Ray had won, but he lost the title, and Mike Ashley wound up getting it.
Yep.
Then Sean came back and won it.
In 91. He never did it again. Yeah.
91.
No, he did it again. Yeah, he got waxed one year.
Oh, he did? What year was that?
The year that it was, I think might have been the year that it was just packed. I think it was when LeBron won. Did LeBron win 2?
Yeah, he won 94, 96. Okay,
one of those years, Sean did it, and he got 5th or 6th because he never did any show except the Olympia.
Right. That was unusual for him. Now Wheeler won it.
What's the iron? What's people say? Oh, he was always like NASA would say. Sean was afraid to do the tours because he wouldn't be able to hold his peak and do well. And the one other time that he did it in Arnold and in Olympia in the same year, he didn't do well at the Arnold.
True. A lot of guys stopped doing it because of that reason. Now, Dexter Jackson won it the most times. And the amazing thing is that I think the last time he won it was 15, according to this thing I'm looking at. I think when was the first time he won? The first time he won it was 08.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big spread. But you know what? Wheeler won it in 93. And then he won it for the 4th time in 2000. So that's a 7-year gap.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
What years did Wheeler win it? So 93, 2000.
93, 97, 98. Nasser won it in 99. And then 2000, he won it again.
Yeah.
Didn't he get into that car accident in 90? Was that 99 when Nasser won?
No, he was in the accident with Francois beat him in 95.
Oh, right. And he still somehow showed up there.
He had the best. Dave, you're mistaken. You always say Branch Warren had that torn quad and had the best comeback after an injury. Wheeler was demolished in a car accident and came back within 9 months.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. I still think a torn quad is worse, but
that's because you tore one.
It's debatable. 2007, Victor Martinez was very, very good. People forget that when he won that Arnold.
Yeah.
I remember Blackman took us out to the steakhouse with him after, and he was going crazy, whooping it up with him.
Because he was his guy, his athlete.
Yeah, because Victor won. But Victor looked really good at that show.
Yeah. Well, that was the year. 2007 was a good year for him. 2000.
Yeah, that's when he, arguably, could have won the Olympia. So Kai Green obviously wins it in 09, 010, and then 16, which was controversial. So we got 3 wins there. So, I mean, Dennis Wolf won it one year. And Cedric, of course, probably should have won twice, but he won in 17. And then we had Curry and Bonac, who won it twice. And then we ended with Nick Walker this past, September. He won it. When you think back at all these champions, and try to remember, if you can, their conditioning and the look that they brought to the Arnold, who would be your top 3?
I would say Ronnie 01, J O.
I forgot Ronnie too. Yeah, you're right.
Ronnie 01, J 2 or 3. The year that J was just 273. I think that was 02.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
That
was the year
Ronnie
you
01,
get the Olympia. Yeah.
Yeah. Ronnie J.
What about the first year Wheeler won? Remember how freaky he was? He wasn't that big.
Wheeler, yeah, 93 Wheeler. 93 Wheeler was just, once in a lifetime.
Off the charts.
Because what it was that he came into the show with a lot of detail, and the knock against him as he got older was that he was losing his detail. Yeah. And he came into the show lighter. And, we always talk about 212 competitors. Why are they so shredded? And everyone says the obvious. Well, because they have to make a weight. In other words, they're lighter. It was a really light weight for him. But regardless of the light weight, it was just a look that at that time, and including today, up until today, is just a look that is, it probably won't, it's hard to replicate by anyone else.
I was thoroughly impressed with Wheeler at that show.
I mean, he had everything, and a crazy, crazy tiny waist. Not that he had a big waist when he got older, but his shoulder to waist ratio. Like Heath, he was narrow, right?
Yeah, but it
didn't matter one bit.
He didn't look narrow at that show.
Not one bit, because of his hips are small, his midsection is small, lines are deep. So I think those 3 alone, right there, 98 Wheeler. Is it 98 Wheeler? Yeah, 98 Wheeler, 2001 Coleman, 2002 J. Those are 3 headliner looks. I mean, they would all win this year for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Now, having looked at all that, just trying to look for the Wheeler footage here. I don't know if it's going to play for us. Anyway.
And that's that. Anyway, when he won in '98, that was when it was just a bodybuilding show. There was no classic. There was no women's bodybuilding, but they didn't have any. They didn't have all the trade show, all that stuff.
And you remember how exciting it was anyway?
Yeah, it was crazy exciting.
People will lose their mind.
Yeah, it was exciting, and the interesting thing is you'd go and the prejudgment would be over just like that. 2 hours, the show's over.
There you go. I got him there. All right. That was at the 93 Arnold.
There you go, dude.
He was just peeled.
And keep in mind. Well, keep in mind, Dave, this is just, high definition video did not come to, this is not high definition video. If this was filmed in the way they film it today, then look at the back.
Unbelievable.
The tie-ins.
He just had he had all the tools.
Look at that picture. His arms were bigger than his head. At least it looked like it.
But someone told me he was under 220 there.
I thought he was I heard 218. He could technically be 218 there.
Was that his first year as a pro? They just said that on the screen.
I think it was his first pro show. Look at the faces sucked.
Or I think maybe he had competed the week before or something like that,
I mean, he had other tremendous looks in his career too, but that one was just super special.
I remember that. Yeah, it was.
And I remember seeing the picture too, Dave. I mean, when you're younger like that, as compared to like older in your career, when you have a long career, your skin is thinner when you're younger. It just is. It just,
Right.
the lines look cleaner.
Right. No, I mean, look, that's what Nick Walker's got going for him, right? That clean. It's like the skin is almost like glued to your muscle. It's like there's no hanging, there's no looseness to it. It's taut. It's freshly stretched, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean,
like when you stretch a canvas, like an art canvas, and it's over years the kind of canvas can get it can lose a little bit of its flexibility,
elasticity.
Yeah. But he was very impressive. There was a lot of impressive. I mean, Dexter Jackson's the winningest Arnold USA champion that there is.
Yeah, he had some tremendous looks.
He eclipsed Flex Wheeler's record. And we always said that would never be beaten, right? I mean,
true.
Who thought Dexter could last that long? It's
only him.
It's the longevity.
Dexter, that's it.
Yeah, it's a total longevity thing. It has nothing to do with because you can't win every year. So, and Dexter certainly probably had. How many second places did he have?
Oh gosh, I don't know. If Dexter had, what it is like anyone with a great career. When you have like as many wins as Dexter, people forget how many seconds and thirds you have. They're like, if he adds them up, I don't know how many pro wins he has. The same thing like LeBron, if they have like 20 something, 29.
Yeah.
LeBron probably had whatever. If he had like 28 pro wins, he probably had 14 seconds, and a lot of those were by point or.
And at the Olympia, they were
Yeah, same thing with Dexter.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that's really what makes a Hall of Fame career, not how many victories, but how many top placings. I think that's also very important. Now let's take a look at this year's lineup. We kind of looked at it a little bit last week, but here's the official. This is the official. Now I guess they got rid of the people who are not in it. William Bonac, Max Charles, Brandon Curry, Samson Dauda, Reagan Grimes, Kuclo, Cedric, Fabio Giga Rezende from Brazil, Justin Rodriguez, Brett Wilkin, and Akeem Williams. Now, looking over this lineup, obviously, I guess Nathan Diasha dropped out, and who else just dropped? Who else dropped out? I forgot who else. Was it Rulli? He early on was gone, I think. So, given the lineup, we've talked about the fact that Brandon Curry has to be considered the favorite going into this as the highest, kind of like the most consistently highest ranking guy. He placed second at the Olympia next to their big Ramy. Do you expect any surprises at the show?
Well, there's always one surprise. Which one to expect is another story. Yeah. But a surprise might be maybe. It's hard to know, Dave, what the surprise is going to be. You can only go by, it's like a stock, even though they say, past performance does not guarantee future performance. Usually in bodybuilding, the people who are doing really well lately, it's Brandon, phenomenal in terms of his placings, and Bonac, even though he hasn't got great placings at the Olympia the last couple of years, he's still been right up there, especially 2 years ago. I thought he was a driving, force to really be in the top two, which he wasn't. If he comes in at his best, anything can happen. There's the Kuclo story.
Let's go to Bonac for a second, because people were breaking his balls online because he wasn't putting up pictures of his legs. Because how people have been critiquing his legs and saying they're not as good anymore. So he put up a picture on his Instagram the other day to kind of shut everyone up, which I love. When William gets mad, it's helpful to him, I think. What do you think of the legs?
I mean, they look like they look like they're up. I saw a picture of his back, and I don't think anyone beats his back shots. I just don't. I think 2 years ago, he had the best back double in the lineup at the Olympia. Best back double in the lineup 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago. And it didn't really help him in the placings. I think he was fourth that year or fifth. But he's dangerous for sure.
He's a freak.
His legs look, he's a freak, and judges love freaky hard. I mean, everyone does. The fans do too, Super freaky muscle. He's never, ever been in anything but great condition for a show, ever.
How does Bonac beat Brandon Curry? What is there a secret, or does Brandon have to beat himself?
I think at this point, well, he can. I don't know if Brandon has to beat himself, but if Bonac is full blown full, he's a lot for Brandon to handle.
I think so too. Yeah,
because we saw that play out. It was only 2 years ago. What year did Brandon win?
19. The year he won.
Okay,
that
19. 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 3 years ago now. But 19, Brandon was fantastic, really coming into his own, won the show. And I personally thought at that show that Bonac was better. Not much.
It was a coin flip. I remember we were analyzing.
It was, few people I asked, what do you think? And I think everyone I spoke with, you included, said, what do you think? And your answer was just can go either way. Yeah. And I think it was really close on the scorecards too, as well. But regardless, a really big and dense Bonac is dangerous for Brandon, no matter how much flow and shape that Brandon has. Where Brandon beats him, of course, is on the front double and front lat spread. The problem with that is it's the first two poses that judges see. So, if you're judging in your head, you're like, okay, Brandon's got it. Doesn't mean that William can't beat him on other poses or catch up ground or make up ground or convince a judge, I'm better. But when the first two poses are Brandon's two best poses, it makes it hard to overcome, a deficit like that mentally, like with your judge. And, Brandon's got, the plus side of having just had a tremendous Mr. Olympia. They're going to compare him, of course. They're going to compare him. I mean, they're going to compare everyone. But I will say this about the judging, that just because Brandon was second at the Olympia, I don't think like head judge Steve Weinberg could give two craps. In other words, if you don't bring it again and someone else is better than you,
absolutely,
too bad. So, and what that means is if it is close, they'll to make sure, they'll compare them a million times. So it's going to be a tremendous prejudging regardless.
Yeah. I want to talk about Akeem Williams for a minute, Chris, because Akeem had a bad Olympia, and everyone was very high on Akeem, myself and you included.
Me too.
And then he had a bad Olympia, and people kind of haven't been talking about him. He's a dangerous guy in this lineup because you don't have a Ramy who's going to make him look small or narrow in this lineup. I think he's going to stack up very well next to these guys on stage. What do you say?
I mean, he can, and sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having a bad show, because it lights a fire under your ass that, okay, that's not me. That's not the best version of me that I could have been. So to be able to, redeem yourself and not be at your best. So those two factors, to be able to redeem yourself and not having been at your best, it's a huge motivating factor to be able to push yourself harder than ever to try to take out one of the, Brandon or Bonac. It's just that right now, he'll have his hands full with those two. I think both of them are better than him right now, for sure.
Right, well, we'll have to see. It really depends what these guys bring to stage. Obviously, we're kind of just, we're hypothesizing at this point.
Well, of course, everything's a hypothesize.
What about let's talk about Steve Kuclo, because at the end of last year, he was very upset that he didn't qualify for that Olympia. He missed. He did the Texas Pro. He came in second behind Ian. Kind of controversial. Then he came back. Obviously, wasn't going to do. He had to do the Arnold Classic and win that. Obviously, that was a Nick Walker's show. But Steve looked good at both appearances. Structurally speaking, in terms of size and width that Kuclo brings to the table, I mean, you have to consider him a potential victor here. I mean, even though he might not have some of the wackinesses of a Curry or a Bonac, I mean, he definitely could stand up to them structurally speaking.
Absolutely. He could technically be a problem. On paper, he's a problem for Bonac because Bonac is shorter and he's not as wide from the front.
Right.
So, Steve is Steve is like a collection of really good body parts. Nothing blows your mind. He's a collection of good flow, good condition, or very good flow, very good condition, very good size. With, I might be overemphasizing very on all those a little bit. But what you get at the end of the day is not much weaknesses, a lot of collective strengths. And that, on stage in good condition can surprise people.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been improving so much since like, early in his career when he was, first like 2, 3, 4 years as a pro was like, got to be bigger. Just the structure was there. Right. Now he's got more density. He's got more muscle maturity. He's got more total muscle size. He's got more muscle separation. But I think really to move up and make a huge impact here, he needs to do something different, which means he's got to either be same condition and crazy full, or same fullness and crazy condition. Because otherwise, a judge will just say, "Yeah, that's Steve Kuclo. He's fantastic."
Right. Right.
And then I hate to say it, but like looks the same as the last couple of years, which is great.
Yeah.
But to make a move in a show like this, you have to bring something that you've never brought before.
He's got to do it like Dennis Wolf did that one time, where he finally nailed the fullness and the conditioning together. And he was the winner.
You know what? The irony is he's kind of like a big guy like Dennis Wolf. Tall and wide, and it's hard to do both. It's easy to do when you're 160. It's when you got a weight class to make, it's easy just to nail the condition. But if you're if you're trying to be as full as absolute possible, and you do that, we go like, oh, not hard enough. Right, and the flip side, if he comes in absolutely diced, we say, oh, he was full of last year in the fall.
Look, it happened to Cedric a couple times. We saw it, So, all right. Well, let's talk about Reagan Grimes, who's made some amazing progress over the last several months, and really put a lot of size on. He obviously made a commitment that he wanted to be a big open bodybuilder. We know earlier in his career he was kind of flip-flopping a little around, didn't know what he wanted to do. He went to Kuwait for a while, then he came back, and then he wanted to do a classic. And it seems like these last 2 years he's really dedicated himself to the process. And you worked with him. You said the guy's got genetic talent, and he seems like he's really maximized his physique a lot over the last several months. Where do you think he falls in this lineup?
First call out on the end, and I mean that because he's like a cousin to Kuclo. In other words,
he's tall though, isn't he? Reagan is over 6 foot, right?
Yeah, so is Kuclo. So they're both tall. They both are wide. Actually, I think Reagan may be wider than Kuclo to some degree. And they both have, they're both in the middle there, where they both, for example, can bring very good condition, but you're up against Bonac and you're up against Curry. So it's, those are different levels of density and muscle maturity.
Olympia lineup you got here.
So, I think with the structure, shape, he just reminds me a lot of Kuclo. I think that there'd be a great, or an interesting matchup is those two, because they compare in terms of, structure, size, meaning height, width. Neither of them are like going to be like wacky peeled out of your mind, which I don't know if they have to be. I don't know if that's the right way to go. Both have grown, getting better. Right. I just think it's a good matchup based on the height and structure.
I think one of the people that another guy that people are overlooking slightly, and not overlooking, he's being mentioned, but Justin Rodriguez, man, I follow this guy's Instagram. He's a real freak. I mean, he's got some grainy conditioning, Chris, that he's showing off, that with a lot of added size, especially to his legs. Look at the side leg. He never had that side leg before. I have a feeling he's going to be very dangerous. He might be like a dark horse where people didn't expect to see a top 3 placing from this guy, and I think we might see him in there.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that he could place really high. And I think he always starts off in these shows outside of the Olympia. He starts off as like a contender to the top 6, get maybe in the first call out towards the end. And you realize as a judge, wow, he's a lot better, in comparisons than I thought.
He works his way up.
Outstanding back double bicep, outstanding front double bicep, super most muscular. I mean, those are 3 important shots in a bodybuilding show. If you have those 3 where you're outstanding in, coupled with great condition, you're going to get great call outs. I mean, the show is, here we're only on person number 4. So, a 5.
I like the fact
5
that
people and they're all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it opens it up for like detailed comparisons,
which is important, because a lot of times that doesn't happen because of the fact that there are too many people. That's why I think the Olympia's got too many people, to be honest with you.
Well, it's hard to, when it's a small field, you can, when you go into a restaurant and there's a menu with me, Dave, and it's like 25 pages, I just ask you, Dave, whatever you get, I'm getting. Yeah. But if there's only if you go to a restaurant and they have it's a little boutique restaurant or something, and they have 5 items on the menu, it's easy to go back and forth and back and compare it, ask the questions to the waiter, what's, what do you think of this? Or what's on that, what's in this, in this, whatever, appetizer. So, it's easier to draw distinctions when you only have a small selection.
Right.
And when there's a big selection, it gets really hard. And sometimes you just go okay, I'm so confused. There's 25. I'll just narrow it down for condition. I'm just going to go for strictly condition.
It's true. Look, you're going to see a lot more comparisons at this show from Steve Weinberger, because there's less guys, so he can mix and match and put them up next to each other and play around up there, because the fans, number 1, want to see it. Number 2, it'll give the judges a better perspective. They don't have to rush. And that's what at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Let's talk about
there will be a game-changing call out, I think, here somewhere. It'll be towards the pre-judging, things have been towards the end, things have been mixed up in terms of this guy compared with that guy. And then don't be surprised if the favorite Brandon gets compared with someone where you're are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
Which is just simply the minutia of we want to, place them exactly the way they should fall. So someone is going to get a call out where it's just, I think people leave pre-judge and say, we didn't expect him to look like that. And when, although I thought he looked good, it wasn't until the end when Steve or so-and-so called, Brandon, who's obviously the odds-on favorite with so-and-so, and so-and-so looked just as good on 2 or 3 poses.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Right. We've seen it happen before. Let's talk about Brett Wilkin, though. He's the new guy kind of on the block. He made a big splash last year, made a lot of improvements last year when he placed, and then he obviously he's been working this whole year to try to bring his best look to the Arnold Classic. And, he's kind of like the rookie, even though he's not a rookie yet anymore, but he's kind of the rookie in this Arnold Classic lineup. How does he do, you think?
I think just simply based on he has a rugged look with condition, he's somewhere there. You know what I mean? It's going to carry him somewhere. Where, I don't know, because he looks great in this picture. It's just I'll give you an example who looks terrible in pictures sometimes, although the picture you posted he looks great in. Reagan, right? Because I've always said from day one, I've always said reminds me of Wolf. In other words, he's wide. Right. So, and a lot of times people have made fun of him and said he's not big enough. And then you realize, well, when he was compared in this pro show, he looked just as good as this guy who's got a lot more muscle than him. So the point being is that you don't know how Brett really, quote, looks until he gets a chance to stand next to
other guys.
Yeah, other guys. And that's just the way bodybuilding is.
His back came up tremendously, though. I'll give him that. I mean, really.
Looks outrageous there.
Yeah, so I think he's going to be a factor.
He may be a factor. He looks great there.
Got to consider him a top 6 guy, because he's done the work and he's made the improvements. And he also has, as you mentioned earlier, that fresh-looking muscle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's got dense.
You could tell
dense
there's
look,
no
yeah.
skin anywhere, and it's like everything's popping right. There's no lumps and bumps everywhere. That goes a long way in the judge's mind, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Do you think it was a mistake for Nick Walker to skip the Arnold Classic?
No, I mean, you have to think like, one, what do I get to prove? Two, you got to. There's risks involved, and then there's the upside. The upside is, I win a game. Do I think he can beat Brandon? No. So that means
think it was a good move. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you come back to the Olympia, and to the Arnold, sorry, to defend what was yours, and you don't win it. It puts a quote dent in your stock, but also puts a dent in your head.
Yeah. Right.
It's you can get trapped in your own head, like, I came back and I thought I was going to win. So the idea of skipping it, besides giving him time to try to make improvements for the Olympia, it insulates him from the idea of, he came back to win and he didn't win.
That's a very good point. What about Hadi Choopan? Why wouldn't a Hadi Choopan come to this show? Because if he beats Brandon, that gives him tremendous momentum going into the Olympia. If he loses, then Brandon beat him already at the Olympia. He has really nothing to lose. Plus, the first place prize paycheck is really, really nice. I'm sure that would certainly help him out over there in Iran.
I'm speculating that he wants to win the Olympia and wants the entire time, with some type of plan to come back and try to win the Olympia. And second to that, though I don't believe that, but just like Nick Walker is, what if I go and I lose it?
But he already has lost to Brandon. If there's nothing, he has really nothing to risk.
Yeah, it's a great point. I guess it would be the former then, that he thinks he's going to win the Olympia and he wants to take the entire year off to try to improve his physique. Probably, I would lean towards what your thoughts, which was it's a good idea that he do the show, because
he still has a whole year for the Olympia almost.
Well, the point is everything is an illusion. He never got to stand last year by him. There's a difference between Hadi Choopan standing with Ramy and Brandon, and Hadi Choopan standing with Ramy alone. The contrasts are amazing. There is a contrast between Brandon and Hadi.
Right.
There's a bigger contrast between Hadi and Ramy. But if you come to this show and you're at your best, and you get to stand next to Brandon, and you get to show up that I might not be, quote, a better bodybuilder, but I'm in better condition. At least half the crowd is going to go with you as the winner. And then it builds some momentum for the Olympia. But it also, even if you don't win and you get to stand next to Brandon again, it sows doubt into Brandon's mind. Yeah. People would say, no, it doesn't sow any doubt into my mind. I'm a champion. Bullshit. If you're Brandon Curry, and the last call out of prejudge at the Arnold this year is Hadi Choopan and Brandon. Yeah. And people say, well, I guess Brandon, but when it came to condition, it just starts to bother you. Yeah. I agree. And then you start changing your game plan for the Olympia.
At the stage of his career that he's at, Hadi Choopan, do you really think that he taking, I guess he would almost over a year for the Olympia, is that going to be of a benefit for him or almost a detriment? Because is he really going to make that many quality gains in muscle at his age?
Well, how old is he? I hear he's young.
Is he?
I hear he's young.
Oh,
I hear he's very young.
I thought he was in his 30s already.
Early 30s.
Oh,
which is, hitting your stride. That's what I hear.
Maybe it's a good move on his part. Then maybe he will make improvements and come back better.
Yeah, he's the bottom line for Hadi Choopan is the Olympia. The Olympia. It depends on what happens with Brandon, but remove the Arnold right now. Just say it's not happening, and say they didn't happen. It didn't happen, and all eyes for the Olympia 2020, whatever, 2022 is on Ramy and Hadi.
Right.
Yes, it's on Brandon too, but it's like, the consensus was, Remy, are you going to get better or not get better? So that puts a lot of pressure on him, and it puts all the eyeballs on, okay, let's see what he brings. But also, Hadi Choopan is like, he left the finals with a lot of people talking like, I don't think a lot of people thought he could have won, but a lot of people were talking about him just respecting like the way he looked at the night show.
Right.
So people want to see him at the Olympia. Like, okay, I wonder how this year, like if the unknown, right?
Right.
We're going to see we're going to see everyone who's going to be at the Olympia in a few weeks, but at the Olympia, we're only going to see, having taken one full year off, Nick Walker, likely, but Hadi and Ramy. So those are the people who people are going to be excited to see, because we didn't get to see him for an entire year. Everyone else jumped into the Arnold.
Let me ask you this question, because I did a rant on it. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. My brain is, I have a COVID fog. A lot of people feel that Brandon Curry is not doing his job as Mr. Olympia, meaning he's not putting any pictures out there. He doesn't really do anything on social media. And my explanation, my response to that was that, and usually I feel like people can do whatever they want. But back in the day, and they try to compare it to like Dorian, because Dorian was always like kind of missing in action. But Dorian, after the Olympia, would do photo shoots with Flex magazine, and they would have pictures of Dorian all year round, right? Because the only place to get information was the magazines. So in essence, Dorian was in the magazines all year round, and they were writing articles about him, and he was being interviewed and stuff like that. So they had all this content, and we're excited to see what he was going to look like the following year, because we were reading about it for 11 months. Ramy now, there's no magazines. So Ramy wins the Olympia. He's not on the cover of any magazine that anyone's reading. So the only way we can get any information on him or see what he's doing or be excited about him being Mr. Olympia would be on social media.
Well,
what's your take on that?
Dorian, of course, was owned by Joe. So the only reason Dorian did is because he did it for one reason only. Give me the money and I'll give you the pictures.
Right.
So with regard to Ramy, he doesn't owe anyone anything. If he wants to just compete, win, go home, and never take another picture, I'm sure when he runs into fans and stuff that he's great with his fans. But I don't think he needs to be updating people on what he's eating or what he looks like or what his body weight is.
But why?
Anyways, it's so because people are so fucking overexposed. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Most of the bodybuilders wake up, turn their phone on. Let's see what happened on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll go from there.
But doesn't Mr. Olympia have some sort of an obligation?
I don't think so at all.
Title holder.
No. The only reason people did it in the past was to get money.
I understand that. I mean, and
that's the only reason that's the reason why people do it now, is to get money. Right. So and there's nothing wrong with that.
Let me turn the tables on you, because this is a bet. If you were Mr. Olympia now,
I'd be training to win a gig.
Chris Aceto wins the Mr. Olympia, and you realize, okay, how many years can I really do this for? What's my escape plan? Wouldn't it be better to be like everyone that the people love and they can relate to, and wouldn't that give him better longevity in terms of if that's what he wants to do with his life?
Two things is, that's just a perspective, but that might just mean he's making enough money that's, quote, enough for him that he doesn't feel obligated to do anything on social media. Yeah, or maybe he's a good saver too. So I'm
sure Jay made plenty of money when he was competing, but he was also doing other stuff on the side because he knew.
Yeah, true. Well, different people.
I think my point is, I think Ramy can make a lot of money if he
he could. Yes, he could. So that's why I said maybe he's happy with what he's got. Maybe.
Yeah, I guess.
And then, the other part of social media is maybe he doesn't like to do something on social media because of the blowback. Because for every time you post and you have 10,000 people comment on a picture,
right,
3,000, 33% of them, 3,000 of them are going to say, like, you look like shit, Brandon looks better. And not saying that he reads those things, but you want to put stuff out for fans, and wouldn't it be nice to be able to put stuff out and just not get all negative comments? You're Mr. Olympian. You can put something out in 2022 and people say, like, you look like crap.
Of course, that's
no. I'll give you the look.
Media.
Watch. I'll be the fan. Average condition, funny looking legs. Wait, I'll do it with everyone, Dave.
Yeah.
No pec striations. Lower lats are gone.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it with now Sean Roden. No triceps. No back development. Phil gut. You can go right on down the line of just about everyone.
You
get
last week?
criticisms.
I want to just point something out. Remember last week when we had Cormier on?
Yes.
It was great. And then, I don't know. Did you hang around after the show when everyone?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, you did. So, you heard what Cormier was saying. Chris Cormier's theory is that a lot of guys who have some of this muscle atrophy going on later in their life, he thinks it's from a lot of spot injections.
Yeah.
Damaging the tissue or the nerves or something like that. He's convinced of it. And who are we to even say he's not right? He might be,
Yeah.
I don't think we saw as much of that back in the day, did we?
No, but the interesting thing is, 3 prominent Mr. Olympias lost their lower lats as they got older. Ronnie's, lower back was absolutely phenomenal. Jay's lower back was absolutely phenomenal. Yep. Remy's lower back was absolutely phenomenal. They all had, fabulous Christmas trees. Mm-hmm. And as they got, as they aged, late 30s, that tended to go away. When Jay had this great comeback in 2009, he didn't have the lower back.
No.
He used to have, if you go back, 2001 or something. That's going way back, rewinding. We talk about fresh muscle, young bodybuilders, but Christmas tree was like insane. It started like at the top of the, at the trunks. By the way, I sent you you get on your Instagram. Someone sent me something today of a backstage video of him that is just brutal looking.
Oh, let me take a look at that.
I figured you'd like that, but you don't have the ability the technological advancement to put it on the.
Let's see. You sent it to my Instagram?
Feed. Yeah, I did.
All right, we'll take a look.
Dave, you're worse than me. You probably don't know how to find it there. People Chris, I messaged you on Instagram. I'm 2 years later. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know it had a messenger.
I got it. Hold on, I got it. See if I can blow this thing up here a little bit. How's that? Now, what year is that?
That's 2003, actually, when Coleman was 290.
This is the year you said when Jay came out. Everyone thought he was going to win until Coleman came out.
Watch his side tricep.
Yeah, that was a freaky shot. Wow. Look at that tricep. His glutes were good. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he had a low back
impressive.
there.
Yeah, he had a low back. Yeah. He was big. What did he weigh there?
Big. I think 203. I think 261.
261.
Yeah.
Impressive.
So Coleman was what, Coleman's taller, but Coleman was I think 286 or something.
Yeah. Or, it's changed. Now he's claiming that he was up.
It's 386.
Yeah.
312.
It's like a game of telephone. All of a sudden, the numbers start ballooning up little by little. Ronnie's going to be one of these guys, when he's 90, because he's going to live till 100 years old. And he's going to be sitting on his porch drinking a lemonade, with a banjo in his hand, maybe, and he'll have all his grandkids around. He'll be telling stories about the Olympia. The stories will be so phantasmagoric that the reality to them will have completely dissipated at that point.
Well, it's like history. We embellish the further we get away from it,
And the older we get too,
Yeah.
Well, Chris and I decided to record this on Sunday because Chris's wife has got to go Monday mornings. I know you guys like when we do the live shows, usually Sunday night. And hopefully by next week, I'll be feeling better and I'll get back to it. I can't stay up that late now. So, and thank you for all the well wishes and the people who criticized my protocols as well.
See?
At least you love me.
Dave, it's just, it's the same with, it's the Remy scenario. You post something,
Most
People
people
wanna
said,
be
"Oh,
critical.
Dave, good luck. I prayed for you." And some people said, "What kind of cockamamie protocol is he taking? That's not gonna do it." But that means you guys love me because you care
Hope
enough.
that
you can say
protocol.
something.
Hope that protocol using species nutrition kills you.
All right, Chris. Well, as we say every week here at Heavy Muscle Radio,
The truth hurts.
Heavy Muscle Radio.
The truth hurts.
You got it. See you next week.